Hello and welcome to Mindful Living, where we explore the art of living with the intention, balance, and inner peace. I am Avik, your host, guiding you through conversations on health, meditation, mental well being, mindfulness, and the mind body connection. Each episode features expert insights to help you grow, heal, and thrive. So, take a deep breath, relax, and join us on this journey to a more mindful and fulfilling life. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and today we have an exceptional guest for us, Ana Megrelishvili, the visionary founder of the Christian Professionals Network Worldwide, which is CPNW. Anna is dedicated to fostering faith based community support and professional growth. But today we are diving into a topic that's both personal and transformative, the practice of silent retreats. Silent retreats offer a unique space for spiritual renewal, introspection, and mindfulness. With Anna's deep commitment to spiritual growth and community transformation, she brings a unique perspective to this practice. So, today in this conversation, we'll explore the benefits of silence, inner reflection, and how to integrate this practice into daily life. So, Anna, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Sana. It's been a great pleasure for me to be invited here, and thank you for a wonderful introduction. And I'm excited to share my experience with your audience.
Lovely. So, before we begin, would you like to share a bit about your personal journey and what motivated you to the world of mindfulness, especially silent retreats?
Absolutely. For your listeners, don't be overwhelmed. I know a lot of people think silent retreats and they think that it's very, very difficult, and that's not for me. I'm going to tell you that I think this practice is for everyone. And I did not start off in my journey and in my life knowing about this practice. It's really been just part of my life for a little over 2 years, frankly. But I want to share with you how I got there, and then I'll go into more detail about just the whole experience to hopefully encourage you to also try it out in your life. So, I am originally from Eastern Europe, and I immigrated to the United States in 2008. And I focused a lot on corporate career and just building just my American dream. And I did not have any practice of spirituality in my life. For a very long time. I was atheist. I didn't really believe in anything higher power, God. It was just so far away from me. And I remember that I had this really big dream of mine, which was to buy this condo in the middle of the city. And I achieved that dream back in 2020. And I remember sitting in my freshly renovated condo apartment, right? And sitting on the couch and thinking like, wow, that did not bring me the happiness I was looking for. So now what? And that was the first time I realized that there has to be more to life than just working, acquiring that next thing you want to purchase, and only a month later feeling disappointed. So that thought process, I think, started this journey where eventually, a few months later, I had this pretty supernatural encounter with God, and where in the middle of the night, I woke up and started praying for the first time in my life. And this voice spoke in the middle of the night and said that I needed to go to the store, prepare food, and feed the hungry. And so the next morning, I didn't go to work, and instead I followed the instructions. And eventually, a homeless woman gave me a gift in the street with this little bird that was made out of clay. And on its chest, it was written, "Now in God's hands." And in that moment, I knew that God exists and He is real. And I was touched. And that started that whole journey for me of just spiritual growth. So I actually quit my corporate job soon after this encounter, maybe 4 or 5 months later. And I decided to go on a year-long sabbatical because I wanted to find my purpose in life. I felt like before I really focused on the wrong things. I really focused on wealth acquisition, and that did not really bring me satisfaction or happiness. And I always felt like something was missing, and I wanted to live my life where I bring positive impact on this world. But I didn't really know what it meant. So my goal was to go travel the world. And I did that for about 6 months. I traveled to 12 different countries. And eventually I heard about the practice of silent retreat. And I actually went on my first silent retreat that year of sabbatical. So that's 2022. And I went to this monastery in Kentucky in the United States. And it was a 5-day silent retreat. And it was very interesting because for those who have never experienced it, so I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on kind of what goes on. So I feel like first day and a half to 2 days are really just the detox days. And what I mean by that, think about our lives. When was the last time you walked into a room and nothing was expected of you? Right? Like for most people, they say, well, maybe when I was a child. Because as adults, when we walk into any room, there is some sort of expectation that we're going to produce work, answer the phone, interact with our family members. When you go on silent retreat, there is no expectation. For those days, you're completely cut off from the world. There's no cell phones. Like you make a commitment to turn off your cell phone, and you cannot speak, and nobody at the retreat center can speak. So that's taken away. All of your meals are prepared and served at certain times, so you don't have to worry about meal preparation. You have your own room, you have your own bathroom, and then basically all you do is just stop. You just stop. And what ends up happening, we carry this armor when we go out in the world, and we need to behave a certain way. We need to just, produce and meet the expectations. And suddenly all of that is taken away. And so what happens is that you go through this detox where you feel tired. Like there were times when I slept for 16 hours straight. It's just this craziest experience of just all of that, what you were carrying, suddenly you just let go of. And so it's almost like you're emptying yourself in preparation for receiving. And so really, first day and a half, it's the detox. You really are not really receiving. And that's the process of your mind to quiet. Really, only after about 2 days, you begin to start getting ready to receive guidance, right? And it can come in many ways. So sometimes it's introspection. So you go deep within yourself. I think silent retreats can help with healing. So if you're dealing with something that's, lingering from your childhood, something that's maybe on your mind quite a lot during your day-to-day, going deeper inside can provide some perspectives that you have not received before. Sometimes, and I'm going to share what happened with me, it turns into something quite incredible. So On my first silent retreat, I actually wrote my first book in 2 days. So, in 2 days, I sat and I wrote my entire life. So, I grew up in a very volatile, dysfunctional family where generational trauma got passed on, generation to generation. And so, what I did, I put on paper 4 generations on my mother's side and 3 generations on my father's side, and talked about how trauma gets passed on until you have that cycle breaker. And I talked about my healing journey and all the different experiences that I've had. And it was quite healing. And, I'm Christian by faith. So for me, I prayed a lot during my silent retreat. And one of the prayers after I wrote down that book was, okay, God, is this just my healing, or is this something that you think needs to be published? And received the answer of, no, this needs to be seen by others. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, so I'm going to give you an example of what followed, because sometimes our human brain can only have certain solutions, certain outcomes. And so when I prayed, I said, okay, I've never thought I'm going to be a published author. So, okay, God, tell me, am I supposed to self-publish it? Am I supposed to send it to publishers? And I received a completely different answer. So that just tells me that when you go on silent retreats, I think the options are expanding beyond just our human capability, because we're suddenly inviting our maker to participate in our decision maker and in our decision making. And I received an answer of saying, you don't even need to do anything. Just tell people about this book, and I'm going to send you a person who's going to help you. Fast forward 4 months, I was having coffee with a business acquaintance, telling her about this experience. And she tells me, oh, well, we're going to this event and I'm going to introduce you to my friend. She does that. She helps publish authors to publish their books. And so exactly what I was told happened. But think about this. I didn't have to spin my wheels. I didn't have to produce any kind of additional effort for it to happen. And so I think this what happens when you go on silent retreats is just you get a lot more clarity, you get a lot more guidance, and we all have a path in our life, right? But you can get from point A to point B as a more straight way, or you can just meander all over, eventually getting to point B, but taking a lot longer. And I really think the silent retreat allows you to almost get a shortcut and just find the path that gets you closer and faster to your soul's goal, whatever that goal is. So that's my first experience. I'm going to pause here just in case you have some questions before I move into just more examples of the silent retreat.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so much ethereal and a very unique experience. These questions come to my mind that many people would struggle with the concept of silence. To be frank, if I first time experienced this, maybe just putting my phone away, completely being in silence, maybe, I would maybe freak out a little bit initially, especially, in a world where we are constantly connected and bombarded by noise. How can someone begin to embrace silence in their everyday life, even without attending a formal retreat, or maybe if in case we're attending one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had that concern as well. So you're not alone, because I'm extremely extroverted, and in my work, I'm a public speaker, so I talk a lot. Words are important, right? And now I write. So I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But frankly, not talking was the easier part. The harder part is being disconnected from the world. We are now so used to constantly having access to smartphones And constantly we think of something, we can immediately Google it, right? We can immediately have access to information. Or if we think of somebody, we can immediately reach them with cell phone. The hard part is that practice of being completely unreachable from the world. And so you think about it, like I had this kind of thought one time, I was like, there could be World War III happening right now, and I would not know it, right? Because I'm in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky with no cell phone communication, with no just completely cut out from the world. And so you have those thoughts, and that's the hardest part, is have the discipline of not turning your phone back on. So I would highly recommend just to make yourself promise that you're not going to turn your cell phone back on. That's the harder part. Now, you don't have to go to a specific retreat center or monastery. However, I do recommend that you don't do a silent retreat in your own home. And here's why. That whole practice is the fact that you don't do anything productive in quotations, because sometimes when you're at home, you would find things to do, something to clean, something to organize, you're still in your space. And that defeats the whole purpose of just really slowing down and not doing much. And instead just allowing your thoughts to flow and linger and just really go deep. So what you could do is actually try to, maybe if monastery is not an option, if retreat centers are not an option, see if you can exchange, kind of house flip with your friend and be in a space where you cannot do anything because it's not your own place. So you can still be there. So I have actually done a retreat where I drove down to the beach and rented a apartment, and I pre-cooked all my meals so I didn't have to worry about cooking while there. And I really loved that retreat because it just allowed me to be by the ocean, which I absolutely love, and walk on the beach and just kind of really commune with God. But I did have the discipline and the practice of doing silent retreats by the time I've gone there. So, I mean, there are all kinds of retreat centers all over the world. Honestly, I would just Google and see. A lot of them operate on donation basis. So they're free and you basically donate whatever you can. So I wouldn't say that cost should be prohibitive. But in, worst case scenario, I would say try to stay at somebody else's house. I do not recommend for anybody to do it at their own house.
That makes sense. So, given your leadership role in the Christian Professionals Network, how do you incorporate lessons from your silent retreat experiences into your work with others and in your community initiatives?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So funny enough, everything that I'm doing now came out of a silent retreat. So my second silent retreat was at the end of my sabbatical year. And so I was going to really conclude the sabbatical, but at that point, I still didn't know what is it that I'm supposed to do. And it was very interesting in that particular silent retreat. I was just not receiving anything. Like it was just like, it felt like God was quiet. I wasn't really receiving any messages. And so it was the very last night of the retreat. I was going home the next morning, and it was my last prayer meditation session. So I was sitting on my bed and I was praying and meditating and saying, okay, God, like I haven't heard anything from you. So I guess I'm just going to maybe go back to my previous corporate career and see what happens, right? Well, suddenly I get this vision of a complete business plan of everything that I'm doing now. And so I'm seeing that I'm on stage in front of just thousands of people, and I'm talking about how we're solving homelessness in the United States. And I was just so overwhelmed. I just remember I just fell down on my knees and was sobbing because the vision was so big. that I felt like, who am I to be able to fulfill it? And I just didn't know how I was going to get there. But then I calmed down and I said, okay, if this is a 5-year plan and I'm breaking it down into tangible actions, what would I do? And I said, what do I need? And I need to grow my Christian circle. And so then I started Googling like just Christian meetups, Christian organizations, and I couldn't really find one that was meeting consistently for professionals to meet. And so that's how I started my organization. Is I just decided I want an organization that meets and really cultivates community, and we are going to do good in the city where we're at. And so we did that for about a year. And then the following year, I thought, okay, we're ready to start expanding and we're ready to start opening chapters in other cities. So I rebranded it from Christian Professionals of Atlanta to Christian Professionals Network Worldwide. And that's what it is now. So I was getting ready to start franchising the concept and just getting all of that ready. But before I make any major decisions, I still go on silent retreats. And so this was no different. I went on another silent retreat. And this time, it was interesting because God just completely said, nope, now is not the time for expansion. Now is the time to start your foundation. So scratch the plan. Instead of opening new chapters, we actually started the foundation side of the organization. So on our nonprofit side, we actually mentor homeless in Atlanta. So, and we successfully started within, first 3 months, we had our first fundraiser. We are starting our first cohort next month. So all of that is happening. So what I thought would take 5 years took 1.5 years. And wow. So I'm just telling you that this practice has allowed me to get to the point that most people would think, and myself included, that it's going to take 5+ years and expedite it so much. And so I'm actually going on my longest silent retreat that I've ever been in 2 weeks. And the reason why is because it's the end of the year and make some big strategic decisions for my organization next year. And again, I could possibly make those decisions on my own, but most likely I'm going to not make the best decisions and it's going to take me longer. And I can almost guarantee that by going on this silent retreat, I'm going to gain a lot more clarity. I'm going to come out with a bigger vision, better plan that I can then come out and implement. And so as a leader of my organization, I talk about this practice quite a bit. And I've actually had several members of my organization who now also started going on silent retreats and receive very positive feedback from them on their experiences. This practice has been shown in Christianity in the Bible when, Jesus has gone away in the wilderness by himself to pray in silence many times. And so this is a practice that's also been shown in the Bible. Maybe it's not called the silent retreat, but it's the same concept. And so I tell them about it so that they are encouraged. And, I can only imagine many of your listeners are not Christian, and you still can do the silent retreat by implementing the spiritual practices that you have. But the most important thing is that you quiet yourself, you allow the higher power to really flow through you, to speak through you. And then I highly recommend to spend as much time as possible in the nature. So I typically go on very, very long walks because that clears your head. And another practice that I highly recommend is fasting. So when I go on silent retreats, I actually fast for 23 hours out of 24. And so I eat one small vegetarian meal a day. But that also allows for a lot more clarity. And you come out after those few days, like you've been on this spa retreat for a month. You feel so recharged, so happy. And frankly, I now understand those people who become monks and nuns and go into monasteries full time, because it's just such peace and such happiness in there.
Yeah, definitely it is. And 2 weeks, wow. Lovely, lovely. That is so interesting, Anna. So, for those who are interested in exploring silent retreats, in fact, even I am now, but are unsure where to start, how to start, what advice would you give them? How can they prepare mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for the experience?
So, I would recommend, so before going on silent retreat, I would recommend for a week to not drink any alcohol, not partake, obviously, any drugs, any cigarettes. If you can, I would also cut out meat and really try to prepare your body and your mind toward it. I think that would give you a much smoother and better experience going into it. As far as finding it, I would say look, just Google, honestly, retreat center, silent retreats in your area. I was shocked how many opportunities there were in my area. I mean, I had no clue for over 30 plus years until I started getting interested in it. And then next thing I know, there's so many centers everywhere. And, I think in your culture in India, there's also a lot of spiritual and centers that possibly would allow you to go and stay for extended period of time.
Yes, yes. In fact, we have one of the biggest ones. So in my city, which is Bangalore, there's Art of Living International Center. So they
Good.
have silent retreats. So in fact, you just motivated me to try it out.
Absolutely. And I recommend take a notebook, write down your thoughts, because it's very interesting to look back on the thoughts that are coming. I do take spiritual books with me because sometimes it's good to just sit in the quiet and read some spiritual. So I take, for me, I take the Bible and I take some Christian books, specifically, like, let's say, if I have something that is going on in my life, in, let's say, personal in relationships, then I take a book that's spiritual and on relationships. If it's something business related, I take a spiritual book that's on business. So that just kind of helps. Sometimes answers come through that. I do recommend also, if you enjoy prayer music, I download on my phone prayer music, and sometimes I just listen to it and meditate. So that clears your mind, and so sometimes that helps with receiving just some messages and just emotions. But I highly recommend writing down even emotions and thoughts that you received during your silent retreats, because sometimes I had to go back and look. Sometimes they don't make sense in the moment, but they might make sense later.
Yeah, definitely. Lovely, lovely, Anna. That was really a beautiful discussion we had. And if our listeners want to connect with you, explore your work with the Christian Professionals Network, and as well as explore your experiences with silent retreats, how they can do that.
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to go on our website. It's cpnworldwide.com. And you can find all of the information about the work that we do. And then you'll find my contact information and the book that I've written called Finding Courage to Change.
Lovely. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes. And Anna, thank you so much,
You're so
first of
welcome.
all, for sharing your journey, the great moments where you, first of all, you interacted with God, you embraced spirituality, and now you are helping others as well, getting the benefits of embracing spirituality and also silent retreats. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I really hope that some people will get inspired and also experience the power of silent retreats.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening who are curious about exploring silent retreats, be sure to check out the show notes along with this episode. And today's conversation can definitely offer you a great starting point. So, until next time, remember to embrace mindfulness and live with intention. This is your host, Sana, signing off.